Tonight, the president's economic stimulus plan passes the House, but every single Republican votes no, saying too much spending, too few tax cuts. I'm Katie Couric. Also tonight, a dangerous winter storm moves into the Northeast. Planes going nowhere, cars skidding everywhere, and millions are spending the night in the dark and cold with no electricity. Watch out! Casualties of war.
I had a bruising on my head, cuts under my eyes.
CBS News investigates the increase in domestic violence when soldiers come home. And the miracle on the Hudson. He got a second chance at life.
If I prayed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I couldn't say thank you enough to God.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
And good evening, everyone, and welcome to Network Television's first ever evening newscast in prime time. President Obama got his first big legislative victory this evening when the White House passed his economic stimulus package, the most expensive piece of legislation in congressional history. Still, it was a big disappointment for the president because despite a personal visit to Capitol Hill to woo Republicans, not a single one of them voted for the bill. The vote was 244 to 188, with 11 Democrats joining the Republicans in voting no. Chip Reid is our chief White House correspondent. And Chip, I know the president is having a cocktail party right now at the White House with some congressional members from both parties. What do you think the mood is like there?
Well, Katie, members of Congress and this president in particular have an amazing ability to disagree on the issues and then get along very well in person. And the White House is emphasizing the positive aspects of this vote. They say it's not so important how many votes the bill gets in the end. What's important is how many jobs it will create. Less than an hour after the vote, members of Congress started arriving at the White House, leaders from both houses and both parties, a dozen Democrats and a dozen Republicans. On the menu, White House advisors say, cocktails, hors d'oeuvres, and bridge building. A clear sign, they say, that the president is not deterred by today's vote and will continue to work hard for Republican support for his stimulus bill and beyond.
The bill is passed without objection. A motion to...
Democrats overwhelmingly supported the $819 billion plan, and tonight the president said in a written statement, the plan now moves to the Senate, and I hope that we can continue to strengthen this plan before it gets to my desk. But what we can't do is drag our feet or allow the same partisan differences to get in our way. We must move swiftly and boldly to put Americans back to work, and that is exactly what this plan begins to do. But his quest for bipartisan support will not be easy. Republicans today relentlessly attacked the stimulus bill.
It's merely a wish list of long-standing liberal Democrat priorities that have little to do with putting our economy back on its feet.
Some examples, they say, $1 billion for Amtrak, $41 billion for local school districts, $127 billion for health care for the poor and unemployed.
Spending. Just plain old spending.
White House officials say this is just the beginning. Next week, the bill goes to the Senate. They say the president will continue to work hard for Republican support. As White House Press Secretary Robert Gibbs put it today, they're only in the third inning of a 9-inning game. Katie?
Having said that, Chip, do you think Republicans in the Senate may in fact do the same thing and vote against this en masse?
Probably not, Katie. A lot of Republicans in the Senate have suggested they really would like to support this bill. The White House is willing to make some changes to get that support. And in fact, they are so confident here at the White House that they will get some Republican support in the Senate. They believe that will then translate into Republican support in the House as the bill is changed in the days ahead.
Okay. Chip Reid at the White House. Thanks a lot, Chip. The stimulus package won't come in time to prevent another round of massive job cuts. Boeing said today it's eliminating 5,500 on top of the 4,500 it announced earlier. And Starbucks, it's cutting 7,000 jobs. Meanwhile, the recession has homes selling at bargain basement prices, but Anthony Mason says just try to get a mortgage to buy one.
On the call, 70,000 to buy 5, I'm at 75.80.
At a series of auctions in California this week, nearly 1,200 foreclosed homes are going at fire sale prices.
We saved about $90,000.
House prices are still in free fall. Mortgage rates are near record lows. But even after the banks have been given more than $500 billion in bailout funds, the Fed said today credit conditions remain extremely tight. How low do mortgage rates have to go before the market has some real stimulus?
I'm looking for the buy one, get one free deals.
Realty Trac's Rick Sharga says buyers are still afraid.
And I think the banks have the same issue in terms of lending. And they're making it very difficult for people to get loans unless they're Donald Trump.
Everybody tells me how low interest rates are, and then I say, where do you get the money? They say there is no money available. So
Developer Donald Trump, who has properties in 10 states, says even billionaires are having a hard time.
I mean, literally, if you have a building making $10 million a year and you have a $2 million mortgage on that building and it comes up for refinance, you can't refinance it. The banks are not in business.
Atlanta's Fidelity Bank had cut back on loans.
We were having to hold tight on lending because we didn't want to run out of capital.
But after getting $48 million in TARP money, Chairman Jim Miller says they're lending again, just more carefully.
You look twice, perhaps, where you would have only looked once before. But we're obliged to lend. We are a bank.
But some banks are hoarding cash to protect themselves from mounting losses. That's what's behind renewed talk of the government buying up the bank's bad debts so they can begin lending again. And Katie, no lending, no recovery.
That's right. Anthony Mason, thank you so much, Anthony. Meanwhile, the post office is having financial trouble, and that could mean you'll be getting fewer deliveries. The Postmaster General asked Congress today to give him the option to cut deliveries from 6 days to 5, at least temporarily, if it becomes necessary. Now, with more people emailing, the Postal Service lost nearly $3 billion last year. It estimates it could save $3.5 billion by eliminating one delivery day. Well, neither snow nor ice kept mail carriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds today, but it did make travel plenty dangerous for everyone from the Southern Plains to New England. At least 24 people have died, mostly in accidents on icy highways, and nearly 1.4 million homes and businesses have lost power. The storm is in the Northeast tonight. Some areas could get as much as 1.5 feet of snow. Dave Price is in Concord, New Hampshire. And Dave, I understand the snow now has been replaced by sleet.
Yeah, the sleet is just beginning to tap down on us after about 9 inches of snow, Katie. And what started out as a treacherous cocktail of moisture and cold temperatures in the southern plains has now moved east. And temperatures here have moved south. The result, a landscape bathed in snow and ice.
It's pretty bad. Roads are slick.
That may sound like bad news to travelers, but today outside Boston, after at least 6 inches of snow, it was great news if you drove a plow.
People that are plowing snow are making their payments, and the ones that aren't, they're selling their equipment. So it's a huge thing.
So this headache for most people is a lifeline.
Absolutely.
As the storm rolled through the Northeast, it brought with it a combination of rain, freezing rain, and snow. But here in northern New England, with temperatures in the 20s, it's been all snow, and in some locations, upwards of 1 foot of it. Back down south, that moisture arrived as ice, dangerous ice. Dallas police reported almost 700 storm-related traffic accidents during the morning rush alone. In Arkansas, freezing rain clung to trees and power lines, knocking out electricity to hundreds of thousands. Kentucky experienced the second largest power outage in state history, affecting some 385,000 customers. And the same storm system dumped more than 1 foot of snow in Indianapolis. Now, many parts of this region have already exceeded what should be their snow totals for the entire season, and we're not even at the halfway point of winter yet. Katie?
Dave Price, who may be spending a few days in Concord, New Hampshire. Dave, thanks so much. Coming up next on this primetime edition of the CBS Evening News, casualties of war. CBS News investigates the growing number of women battered or worse by their military husbands or boyfriends.
Tonight's primetime edition of the CBS Evening News is sponsored by The Reader, starring Kate Winslet. Now playing.
The Army is cracking down on sexual abuse in the ranks. 1/3 of service women and 6% of servicemen say they've been victims. This week, the Army said it will hire more prosecutors to bring perpetrators to justice. Meanwhile, critics say the military needs to do more about another crime, women being assaulted, beaten, even raped by their military husbands or boyfriends. A CBS News investigation finds more than 25,000 spouses and domestic partners have been attacked over the past decade. Nearly 90 spouses have died. The numbers are growing, and tonight in this exclusive report, you'll hear from some of the victims. It can be as deadly as combat.
Whoa! There was a guy with a pistol or some kind of gun, and he came in and shot my mother.
Domestic violence inside the U.S. military.
19-year-old specialist Brandon Bear accused of killing his own wife.
Jasacia Patton is a survivor.
I had a bruising on my head, cuts under my eyes, my lips, and my whole body was just like a big bruise.
When specialist Lenny McIntyre returned to Fort Lewis, Washington, his wife says the war had changed him. After his second tour of duty in Iraq with the Army Rangers, she says he wasn't sleeping and was filled with anger, especially when their infant daughter would cry.
Any noise that she made, it bothered him. He said it reminded him too much of Iraq and the kids that he shot and the screaming, and he couldn't take it, being reminded.
That anger turned to violence. He pleaded guilty to child abuse after beating 3-month-old Bella. Then, a few months later, in a drunken rage, threatening her with a gun, he attacked and raped his wife.
I think I laid there for about an hour and just cried. I had given up. I didn't even care if he came in and he killed me. And, I was broken.
McIntyre was jailed, but for only one night, given extra duty and ordered to sleep in the barracks. Patton sought help from the chaplain, the Ranger Battalion, as well as McIntyre's commanding officers, but found no answers. What do you think is the major flaw in the way the U.S. military, at least in your experience, deals with domestic violence?
When a soldier beats his wife, the wife falls through the crack. They make it very impossible to get through the system and get anything done.
It wasn't until Lenny McIntyre threatened his fellow soldiers and went AWOL that the Army decided to press charges. 3 weeks ago, he was sentenced to 7 years in a military prison.
You are also high risk of becoming victims.
We spoke to several military family advocates who say the system is broken, underfunded, and understaffed. This former advocate did not want to be identified for fear of retribution.
Well, I think the Pentagon needs to step in and start a better training program for their commanders.
Lynn McCollum is the Army Director of Family Affairs. According to our conversations with a number of victims advocates, the Army usually rallies around the soldiers and leaves the victim to fend for herself. And then when she finally does get help, the complaint is the system is entirely stacked against her.
It's disturbing to hear those kinds of comments. Over the last couple of years, we've really put into place and increased the number of victim advocates. One of our biggest challenges, because we're a large bureaucracy, is getting information out.
It's not only the victims that aren't getting help, it's also the soldiers. CBS News has learned that in case after case, soldiers returning from Iraq or Afghanistan have raised red flags regarding their mental health problems, but they're often ignored with devastating consequences. In this post-deployment health assessment obtained by CBS News, this soldier clearly indicates concerns for potential conflict with his spouse or family members and that he might hurt or lose control with someone. But nothing was done. A year later, he murdered his wife. He put it right here on a questionnaire, and nobody did anything about it. How can that happen if you have all these systems and services in place?
I need a break, guys.
After discussing the incident with her colleagues, McCollum returned to answer the question.
Obviously, I think in this situation, a mistake probably was made.
Then there's the case of Sergeant James Pitts. Tomorrow, in an exclusive interview, he tells us how the military failed to help him or protect his Army wife.
This war took my family from me. I've lost everything.
And you can go to cbsnews.com to see more of Jasacia Patton's story of survival. We'll be right back. Chances are you're not even aware of it, but there's a war going on tonight right across the border in Mexico. A drug war. Drug gangs killed more than 6,600 people there last year, and they're threatening the stability of the Mexican government, as Bill Whitaker reports from south of the border.
To show they're making headway against the hyper-violent drug cartels, soldiers in Tijuana paraded their latest big arrest, a cartel lieutenant called El Pozolero, named for a Mexican stew because he's confessed to stewing more than 300 bodies in vats of acid. But there's even more evidence the cartels are operating with near impunity as they wage bloody battle for control of lucrative smuggling routes into the U.S. 28 days into the new year and already 400 drug slayings across Mexico. 2008 ended with a grisly flourish. 12 soldiers decapitated with this note: for every one of us you kill, we'll kill 10.
These criminal kingpins are not afraid of government authority. They're willing to take it on directly.
The cartel carnage and brutality are escalating so rapidly, authorities here so besieged, that some U.S. analysts are warning that Mexico is in danger of collapse, leaving a failed, lawless state right on the U.S. southern border. The current Joint Forces Command report warns if trends continue, the U.S. must be on guard for the possible rapid and sudden collapse of Mexico.
We are not inclined to think of our relationship with Mexico as a national security problem. But if this trajectory continues, it will become so.
Well, I certainly don't think it is a failed state.
And former Mexican Foreign Minister Jorge Castañeda says the new Obama administration can't afford to let it become one.
I'm very scared about threats and danger to American interests in Mexico.
Meeting with Mexico's president 2 weeks ago, then President-elect Obama pledged cooperation.
The more secure Mexico is, the more secure U.S. will be.
So it requires much more money, much more effort, much more intelligence sharing.
On top of the $400 million the U.S. already has pledged to help Mexico fight the cartels. Another challenge for the new president: help stop this bloodbath before it drenches both sides of the border. Bill Whitaker, CBS News, Tijuana.
And coming up next on this special primetime edition of the CBS Evening News, miracles 155 and counting. Tonight, a story of one life saved and changed forever. Finally tonight, we all saw the incredible pictures a couple of weeks ago. A U.S. Airways jetliner floating in the Hudson River here in New York, and everyone on board being rescued. But the story didn't end there, not for the passengers and crew. For them, the images replay over and over. Steve Hartman now with one of the last passengers rescued in tonight's Assignment America.
If I prayed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I couldn't say thank you enough to God.
Unlike most stories, the story of Casey Jones actually begins with the happy ending. The miracle on the Hudson. For Casey, who stood right there, the safe landing of Flight 1549 was just the first of several miracles he's seen since. A sunrise was the second.
Magnificent. Just the color. Fantastic.
Casey returned home to Jacksonville, Florida with a whole new appreciation for both his life and his wife. Since the crash, these two have been clinging to each other like high school sweethearts.
This is the first time I'm letting you out of my sight.
It is.
Last Tuesday was the technology manager's first full day at the office. After he left, I asked Judy why spending a whole day apart would be so hard.
Every second counts right now.
But before she could fully answer,
It's Casey.
Casey made it a moot point.
I do want to have lunch.
Clearly, in some ways, the crash has been a blessing for this father of four, albeit a mixed blessing.
I don't know how to take things for granted anymore. I don't know how to just do.
Isn't that good, though?
Yeah, I think it is, but I don't know if I can live on edge like this forever.
And there's the rub.
I can't focus. I haven't been able to read anything. My attention span I had a train of thought that I lost. And there's those moments all the time.
After this interview, we asked Casey to keep a video journal to document all those thoughts about the crash darting through his head. The tapes show everything.
Memories always keep coming in. I still can't really block those.
From frustration and guilt.
I was too concerned about me and not concerned enough about everybody there.
To what may be some resolution.
If somebody said to me, if you could go back and do it over, would you change it? And I don't know that I would, knowing the outcome.
Amazing how sometimes the greatest gift of all is just realizing what you already have.
That's precious.
Casey is back in New York tonight, back on business. He had booked himself to return tomorrow on the same flight that crashed until his wife insisted he change it.
And you wonder how long his life will be changed. And it'd be interesting to follow him in 6 months, right?
That's what we talked about that with him, and he insists this is going to go on forever.
Well, I'm sure his wife hopes so. Meanwhile, tell us about this Friday's piece.
Okay, this Friday, coming up. When Judson King's mom said no to this unusual pet, he went over her head and took his case to City Hall. We're going to have that story Friday night.
All right, as always, Steve, thanks so much. And by the way, I'll have the first exclusive interview with U.S. Airways Captain Sully Sullenberger and his entire crew February 8th. That's a week from Sunday on 60 Minutes. And that's our primetime edition of the CBS Evening News. I'm Katie Couric in New York. Thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow at our regular time. Good night.